Welcome to Torino and to the opening general session for the European Meetings and Events Conference 2009. What an incredible journey it's been since last year in London. We've been staggered by a number of things that affected not only our industry, but virtually every industry. From the economic situation in the banking and mortgage sectors, to the changes in governmental authority, to the continuing volatility in the price of oil, there are external factors that are affecting our business, and just a new one coming up just about every day. The result is a paradigm shift that creates a question that we all need to answer. Just what am I going to do about it? The challenges we face are formidable. However, in the midst of crisis, there's always an opportunity to discover and implement solutions that will drive positive change. Rather than merely reacting to the situation, we have the opportunity to guide our collective destinies. We can do this by first understanding what the forces are that brought us to this particular place in time. And secondly, by sharing our ideas to develop plans that address our role into the future. There are basically two things we have to consider as we face the challenges that confront each of us. One is in the short term. That's survival. But we all want to do more than just survive. We want to thrive. So as we all go through this period of challenge and change, I suggest our new battle cry in the meetings industry should be survive and thrive. The second thing we want to consider is how will we face the global conditions that will be our new reality as we implement the new plans in our future? Taking all of the current uncertainties and challenging economic conditions into account, by design, our conference this year is truly different from what many of you have experienced in the past. We introduced the European Meetings and Events Conference concept last year in London, and the response from all of you has been very positive. Today, we are taking the conference to the next level. How are we doing this? Number one, the sessions are more interactive, each designed to provide more opportunity for two-way dialogue and personal connections. There is particular focus on providing you with information that is pertinent for a meeting industry in the midst of change. Secondly, to further reflect the changes our industry faces, this opening general session will reach a much wider audience. This session will be broadcast tomorrow afternoon over the internet, allowing our global community to connect to all of you. It is true, there are many challenges the meetings and event industry face. In fact, there are challenges facing all industries, from the automobile, manufacturing sector, to banking, to retailers. I ask you, what business segment is not affected in some way by the current economic crisis? Now, that's part of the good news. We're not alone. Our purpose during the conference is to examine the current environment and concentrate not on the negatives, we know they're there, but to look for the opportunities that face us. Today, we want to start a conversation that will get all of us thinking about the solutions. That's the beauty of a challenge. It presents us with the opportunity to think bigger, to share our experiences and best practices, and if necessity is the mother of invention, then a good challenge is the father of solution. Complacency has no place in our industry today. We cannot merely sit around and hope problems will go away. Hope is not a strategy. We must work our problems and solve them. The status quo just doesn't work. What we have always done might not be appropriate for what we need to do. Our very survival depends on how we solve problems, and if needed, how we reshape our industry. In the face of tough times affecting the industry globally, the survival of the fittest is what we can expect. As an example of how the crisis is affecting the United States is the Troubled Asset Relief Program, affectionately known as TARP, which is providing funds to prevent a catastrophic collapse in the United States financial infrastructure. As part of this program, the United States Congress has developed policies that will inhibit companies that receive this emergency funding from using meetings and events to communicate and motivate staff in the same way as before. AIG made headlines when, after accepting the funds, they went forward with a previously planned meeting for some of their sales executives. Some viewed this as evidence of further and gross mismanagement. Larry King invited AIG Chairman and CEO Edward Liddy to his famous Larry King Show on CNN to explain that decision. Here now, with gracious permission from CNN, is a portion of that interview.
Good evening. Ed Liddy was appointed chief executive of AIG on September 18th, the day the government bailout was announced. And since then, the government has loaned AIG $123 billion and has an almost 80% stake in the company. But several high-dollar executive retreats since the bailout have infuriated some members of Congress and the public. The latest was a meeting held last week in Phoenix. And joining us now in New York is Ed Liddy, the chairman and CEO of AIG American International. Did you realize, Ed, that this meeting would create a public uproar?
You know, we thought there was a good chance that it would be received poorly. It certainly was. But, Larry, I'd really like just the opportunity to explain what it was. It was not an executive retreat. It was 150 independent financial planners. They're not AIG employees. They could sell any products they want, any of our competitors. The purpose of this is to do education and training so they would understand our products, how to sell them, and who they should sell them to. If mortgage brokers had done more of this with subprime mortgages, we may not have been in the mess that we're in. So this is an educational seminar for the tens of thousands of independent brokers and financial planners that AIG works through. This was 150 people. Wasn't AIG executives, wasn't AIG employees.
What did it cost AIG?
Cost us $23,000. The bulk of this, 90% of this, was paid for by the participants who were there and our partners at this conference.
And all this is very explainable. I've spoken at many conferences just like that. But why logically put yourself in a position of even having it questioned, like even holding it at the kind of resort you held it at?
Yeah, Larry, it's a good question. You mentioned in the 7 weeks I've been here, we've canceled about over 160 conferences or events. But when you have the organization the size of AIG, you really have to train the people who are selling the product. What we want to do is make sure they understand the product, all of its features, and they know what to sell to whom. We don't want a variable annuity sold to an 85-year-old widow. So there's a certain amount of training and education that simply has to take place, particularly in an organization this size. That's exactly what this was. We've attempted to explain this to all of the news media and journalists. Most of them got it, looked at the fact pattern and said, oh, I understand it exactly for what it was. One news agency did not. We intend to pay every single penny plus interest back to the taxpayer.
Ed, I thank you for joining us. Would you join us again sometime soon? I'd like to delve into this a lot more.
I'll join you again, Larry, and I'm going to do it when we are successful.
Okay, that's a co-promise.
Thank you.
You know, I'm not quite sure why they had to put Hilton up there. I might tend to take that a little personal. But obviously, we want corporations and brands to show empathy for the current conditions. But we don't want draconian measures put in place by government, both in the United States and here in Europe, that affect jobs, communities, and businesses. Obviously, the consequences for Europe and our business in hotels, venues, and the entire supply chain will be serious. Many American companies receiving this funding have European headquarters, and it would not only be an inbound issue for Europe, but also issues here in this soil. Companies affected, for example, are Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Citigroup, Opel, Saab, Volvo, many, many more. Now is the time to attack complex business challenges with solutions that can only be developed face-to-face. As part of our commitment to the success of our members and to the future of our industry, last week we launched a new web resource, meetingsindustrycrisiscenter.org. This is for meeting professionals to connect during this crisis. We have included up-to-date information, resources such as the model meeting and event policy released last week. Join us for a session on Tuesday to learn more about this policy. It would not be possible to develop and provide all of these solutions to you without the support of our partners. Our global partners, IMEX and EIBTM, our European partners, and our sponsors. They support us in surviving and thriving in these challenging times and enable us to invest in your future. This crisis will force us as an industry to elevate our profession and develop our skills. One of the major milestones in this year's developments for the MPI community is surely the launch of the MPI Global Knowledge Plan, an 8-step plan intended to ensure that the development needs of the community are met throughout the entire course of their careers, with multiple points of entry and engagement for personalized, professional, and career development. 2 very successful global certificate and meeting operation programs have already been held in Doha, Qatar. The high demand for education and training in the Middle East led to the opening of an MPI Middle East office in Doha in partnership with QMDI and the Qatar Foundation. Another way to elevate our conversation and provide you with relevant content is the launch of OnePlus EMEA Edition. This new magazine will provide you with more EMEA relevant cutting-edge content. This also symbolizes MPI's global presence and the community development outside of North America. On that note, it's my privilege to let you know that MPI will have its first ever chairman of the board from outside North America. Our nominating committee is indeed proposing a face well known to many of you, Eric Rosenberg, CMM, CMP, as the chair-elect of our International Board of Directors for next year. Eric? And let me be the very first, Eric, in front of all these people to say, happy birthday. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce one of our partners and sponsors, Mr. Paul Kennedy, MBE, Group Exhibition Director, Meetings and Incentive Events for Reed Travel Exhibitions.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm delighted to be back here in Italy, which of course witnessed the birth of the first European chapter of MPI. But before I go on, let me be the second to say happy birthday, Eric, and a very personal congratulations on your appointment as chair-elect. I'm very, very pleased for you. And now I've lost my place on the altar queue. We continue to hear much doom and gloom. And it's important in the face, of developments such as the TARP legislation that Larry referred to, that our industry associations take a lead. They take a lead in a lead position in advocating the importance of the meetings industry at a macroeconomic level and to individual organizations' effectiveness and success. As I travel around the world, much like our keynote speaker today, it's become clear to me there's much business still to be done. On the supply side, venues and hotels and specialist suppliers need to switch to an understanding of the planner's ROI and ROO rather than a focus on yield management. And if they do, they'll win out. On the demand side, most planners who recognize that venue, hotel, and other supply-side professionals can and should add value to their event will also benefit. We frankly do not need to keep talking ourselves down into an ever downward spiral. What we need is clarity of vision and effective leadership. Leadership which can define our strategy in ways in which our teams understand and can strive to attain. We need leadership which says getting face-to-face with our clients is the right thing to do, and in understanding their business objectives makes business sense to ourselves. We need leadership which encourages us to work strategically with our supply chains so we mutually benefit, and this is often forgotten as a vital piece of business. Within our own meeting profession, we need leaders and leadership organizations such as MPI, which help us to build our profession and demonstrate what we do is a vital and effective component of organizational effectiveness and success. To help us on our way, it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker today, who also graced the EMEA2009 Professional Education Program. Our speaker is a leadership methodologist and author. Having successfully launched a number of businesses, he has for 2 decades been studying effective organizations and their leaders, traveling some 150,000 miles per annum, but I am amazed I've yet to meet him at an airport. He works with business leaders to help them develop and get the best of themselves as well as their team. Honored by a top 12 position in the world's top 30 most influential leadership gurus in both 2007 and 2008, thousands of business leaders around the world subscribe to his monthly Thoughts on Leadership. Today, he will share with us some of his thoughts and discoveries and challenge us as individual managers and leaders to raise our effectiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Paul Bridle.
Good afternoon. Oh, well, there's a bit of response there. That's brilliant. Welcome to Torino, and happy birthday to Eric. I'm the 3rd person. You're going to have a rough night. You know that, don't you? One by one, we're all going to go up and get just somebody buy him a drink, okay? Welcome to Torino. You know, when we were coming here, I thought to myself, Torino, this is an interesting city, but I didn't realize how interesting it really is. And what I want to do is just share with you a little bit of background to the city, because it's interesting how it's evolved and it's reinvented itself. And in there is going to be the message I want to give to you as well. So come on a little journey with me, because in around 28 BC, the Romans originally created a military camp which was later dedicated to Augustus. It had around about 5,000 people here, and it was on this site where Torino is today. And then after the fall of the Roman Empire, the city was conquered by the Lombards and then the Franks of Charlemagne. And in 940, it was officially named as Torino, Conte di Torino. I can't say it as well as the people here can. And through the Middle Age, it was ruled by the Count of Torino, and in 1230 by the Lord of Turin. And by the end of the 13th century, it had 20,000 people living here. Then in the 15th century, the city was redesigned, and many of the gardens and palaces that you see here came about over that period of time. And then in the 16th to the 18th century, the walls were enlarged and then enlarged again a number of times. And the bridge was put over the River Po. In 1706, there was the Battle of Turin. And this was when the French besieged the city for 117 days, but they never did conquer it. And after the Treaty of Utrecht, a gentleman, an architect by the name of Filippo Janva, became the designer of the city. He redesigned the city. And at this stage, we had around about 90,000 inhabitants in the city. In the 19th century, Napoleon briefly occupied it, but then after this moment in time, the city was looking for unification in Italy, and it was in 1871 that this tunnel was built. And this tunnel was built to improve communication throughout Italy. It saw itself as being a hub by which the communication would take place. And sure enough, at this time, shortly after this time, this famous square was built, which is called Vittorio Veneto, I believe. Then in 1861, this city became the capital of Italy. Did you know that? This was the capital of Italy until it was moved to Florence in 1865 and Rome in 1871, making it the third city of Italy. At this stage, it started to rapidly go into industrialization. And in 1899, Fiat, and this building, by the way, is a Fiat factory, or was a Fiat factory, and it started in that period of time in 1899. And then in 1906, Lancia as well was founded here in Turin. The Universal Exposition was held in 1902 and again in 1911, and it is often considered that those were the pinnacle of Art Nouveau design at those times. And at this time, it had 430,000 inhabitants. And then after the Second World War, the city had to rebuild itself and its industries. And this meant waves of immigrants starting to come into the city and rebuild it. And the population in 1960 got to 1 million, and then in 1975 got to 1.5 million people. After that, it started to decline, and by 2005, it was 908,000 residents. But the city was still focused, and target was the Olympics. And in 2006, it hosted the Olympics here in Turin. So there's a brief history to this wonderful city, the city we are now in for a few days. Do you think that all those years ago, some Romans sat down and went, I'm going to build a city here. It's going to become the capital of a place called Italy. And then it's going to go on to become a communication hub. And then, of course, it'll move on and it'll become industrialized. And then it'll move on. One day it'll host the Olympics. Do you think that happened? No. What the city did was it set itself targets. And then as the world changed around it, it had to reconsider what it was trying to achieve. Always looking for new things, always looking for new ways to develop the city. And even now, it's looking to become a knowledge hub for Europe. Fascinating city. The point of my story is it has reinvented itself again and again and again. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what business is like these days, isn't it? We're constantly having to reinvent ourselves and what we do and rethink what's happening. I think I call it a game. How many of you here play golf? Let me see anybody. How many of you are not admitting to it? Okay, yes, I can see those too. Golf is a fascinating game, and I like to draw the analogy with business. I'm not a golfer. I did used to play it one time. I certainly don't have time these days. But it's a great analogy because, I take it you all understand the rules of golf. I mean, you take a ball and you use this thing they call a club, and you get it into 18 holes in a row, of course. And the idea is to do it in the least number of hits. Does those who don't play golf got that? You're all right with that? Yes? Okay. Some people say golf just ruins a good walk. I think that's a little bit unfair, but anyway. So when you're setting out to play a game of golf, you have in mind what you want to achieve. You want to get around the course in X number of hits. In other words, swings, whatever you want to call it. They've got on the course has got so many hits it should take, and you want to be so many above that. If I did 10 over last time, well, I'm aiming to do under 10 this time. So there's always this ambition. But tell me something. You've set a target there. When you're actually stood there on this course and you're looking down that fairway and the ball's in front of you, and you're sizing up so many things at this moment in time. You're looking at the wind and the weather of the day, because it can carry the ball farther or less. The dampness, I mean, will it stop dead or will it run for quite a while? How hard is the soil? There's a number of things you're weighing up as you want to take a hit with your club. At that moment, the overall target of what you want to achieve is still in your mind, but it's at the back of your mind. Because at this moment, you know that if you get this right, and then you got the next one right, and then you got the next one right, you would eventually hit that target. And it's a process of getting each little step right. And if we do that, we'll end up hitting our target. Of course, there's things on the golf course to distract us. They call them bunkers. They're full of sand. And guess what? If you look down there and focus on the bunkers, where does your ball go? In the bunker. So you play the game of golf, and as you go round, the mist comes down and the rain starts to pour. You have a choice. You have to change your game. You can't play the same game as you were a few minutes ago. So you're going to have to reconsider what you're doing. And that's why I give the analogy of business. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter how good you are. You're on the 13th hole in 2009, and it's raining, and it's damp, and it's cold. The day started out beautiful and sunny, but it isn't that now. But you have to play the game. And you have to rethink how you're going to play the game. And that's the challenge we all face. And the person next to you and the person in front of you and the person behind you has the same challenges as you. We're all having to rethink what we do and how we're going to do it over the future. And there's three things I think that should be at the bottom of your mind at this moment. And first one is, do I have an outstanding offering? Whatever it is you offer, whatever product or service it is that you're doing, have you got something that's really, really, really outstanding to offer? And then have you got a brilliant way of delivering what you offer? And then have you got the cash to do it? And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's business in 3 lines. Now, we've hit a recession. And those that had the problem with the cash flow have gone. Some of them are still teetering on the edge there, but they're on the way. There's a load of them that are sitting tight. Where are you? Because I'm going to give you another analogy of what I think you should be doing at this moment in line with these 3 points. When you drive your car and you want to pull out and overtake, you have to be in the right gear, correct? Now, of course, if you've got an automatic, it does it for you, but you'll still hear the change of gear. And if you're not in the right gear to overtake, then you can pull out and then realize you've not got enough speed or enough power there to get you through. And that can be dangerous. So you have to get yourself in the right gear, and then you go and you charge off. This period of time between now and the end of the recession, your job is to find the right gear. MPI is here to help you. MPI will give you the support and the guidance and the network and the involvement with people here to help you get to where you need to go. But you need to be defining what gear you need to be in. You need to make sure you've got the people there, you've got the product right, the service right, whatever it is, and that you're able to provide it in the most outstanding way. Because when this recession's over, those in the right gear will take off. Those that are in the wrong gear will pull out and then find they have not got enough behind them to pull away quickly enough. And you want to be ahead of those people. So those are the challenges we face. And do you know something? It's so exciting. Yeah, because every recession has ended with a boom. It's always been a boom that follows. Okay, I could also say that every boom has been followed by a recession. But you know what I mean? We're actually in the recession now, and now's the time. And if we can get it right. And I'm just so frustrated with people and organizations. Because they just can't see that if you can get it right, get the perception right now, and get ready to go when the time has arrived. And as Paul said, it means that we have to have leadership. And now you hit my favorite subject. Leadership. We talk about this subject no end. And then we talk about management, and we use the two words so intermingled that we get confused. Let me try and give you a plotted history very quickly of how management and leadership has developed. And let's see how it has got to where it is today, and I can give you a bit of an idea of where it's going. Because, you see, I'm old enough to remember the good old days when people came to work and did as they were told. There's a few of you in this audience, I think you'll remember those days. People just came to work, did as they were told, you gave them some money, and they went home again. And you don't bring your brains with you, because I'm the person who thinks around here, because I got a badge that says manager. So you come along and just do as we tell you to do. That was pre-80s. Okay? It was an age when people had a job, because it was just a job. People would go into their communities and involve themselves in associations and local community events. Then the 80s came, and the 80s was an interesting time, because in the 80s, what happened was we had particular people on the world stage. We had Margaret Thatcher in Britain. We had Ronald Reagan in the United States. We had Gorbachev in Russia. And we had Pope John Paul. And I'm not promoting any particular religion or anything like that, but Pope John Paul was a wonderful study that I did on his leadership style. And what Pope John Paul did was he came along and he was elected Pope, and he immediately wanted to go to Poland. And so he headed off to Poland. And of course, the Russians didn't want that. No, we've got problems in Poland, and stay back. And they threatened him, and they told him they couldn't do that. But he went. And if you know your history, the Gdansk, the uprising that took place at that time, and somebody said to him, it was a result of you that the Berlin Wall fell. And such was the humility of the Pope. He said, no. The wall was rotten. I just leaned on it. So he played his part. Thatcher and Reagan, they were good friends. And Thatcher said to Reagan, this guy, Gorbachev, I think he's somebody we can do business with. Why don't you go and talk to him? And sure enough, Reagan went. And Reagan was a fascinating man. And the two of them sat there with all their advisors talking at each other. And the story goes that Ronald got up at one stage and walked around the room. And he walked up to Mikhail Gorbachev and he stuck his hand out and he said, "Hi, my name is Ronnie. Do you think you and I could just talk?" And a lot of people then said that handshake was the end of the Cold War, because those two men did go off and talk. So it was those people being in the right place at the right time that changed our history for us. Ladies and gentlemen, we suddenly had to change in the West a lot of the way we did things then. What Thatcher and Reagan realized was that what was coming at us in the future, if communism was collapsing, what was happening would be people would be coming out there and buying things and getting involved, but they would also start buying. And then they'd look at what they bought and they'd go, "We can make this." And sure enough, what came out of the East was consumers, but people who were also wanting to be part of the world scene. and we're prepared to make things a lot cheaper than we could. And our manufacturing shifted over in that direction. And our management style changed because we suddenly said, well, hang on a minute, to be competitive, we need to do things differently. And Thatcher and Reagan were very strong about this, getting the business leaders and the unions together and bashing their heads together and telling them both that they were, you're too fat and lazy and you demand too much and get competitive because what's coming over there is going to kill you. And so we did. We said to people, come to work. We'll set you objectives. We'll train you. We'll coach you. You're not just coming for a job. You're part of the family. You're employed. You're with us. Come join us. And already the world shifted again, ladies and gentlemen. Our management style has had to shift yet again. This time it shifted because of the younger generation. The younger generation coming through, the new employee on the block, what they call as the X and Y generation. I want to know what's going to come after Z. Where did we just planet go? Well, anyway, and this new generation have different. I mean, some of them are in this audience here. These are the young generation. They've not seen a recession before. This is new to them. But they're also got whole hopes and aspirations and ideas. And first of all, they don't believe in managers. We're going to have a shortage of managers in the years ahead. Why? Because this is the generation who watch their mom and dad come home at 8, 9 o'clock at night. Mom, why are you working so hard? It's for your future. Yeah, but I'd like to see you. Well, I'll see you on the weekend. These are what we call in England the latchkey kids. They let themselves in and they made themselves microwave dinners. Now they've grown up and they're going to go, I don't do that. I'm not going to work those hours. I'm not going to work myself into the ground because I've seen my parents work that hard and now their pensions can't pay out for them. And they have distrusted more and more the system. They don't want management. I don't have to wear a badge that says manager to say that I'm successful. I can be an expert and a specialist. By my expertise and specialism, I can carve a position for myself, a niche in the market, which says I'm worth something. I don't need the badge that says manager. And they also want a lifestyle. I come to work as part of my life. They want to work part-time, flexi time, work from home. They've got all these aspirations. And so our management style and our leadership style has had to change and adapt in accordance with all of those things. And of course, now the recession's arrived. And I've had chief executives saying to me, that'll teach those little people, they'll knuckle down now we've got a recession. And you know what they're doing? They're getting up sticks and moving somewhere else. They're going and finding the opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, management and leadership has had to evolve. We're in a recession, it'll have to evolve again. When we come out of it, it'll have to evolve some more. I can give you some basic ideas, very limited time together, but let me share a couple of thoughts with you. Let me summarize what I've said. We lived in an age when people had a job. It was an age when I call of action. We went through the age when people were employed. That was the age of activity. Have you got any of those people working for you that are in the 80s people, by the way? Have any of you got those working? You can always tell them because they're busy, rushing around, doing things. Can I speak to you? I'll be with you in a minute. I'll be now there. And when they've gone home at the end of the day, you step back and you look and you go, what did they actually achieve? They looked busy all day, but what's been achieved? Ladies and gentlemen, we're living in an age when the older generation deserve a lifestyle, the younger generation want it now and won't wait for it. We're in the age of achievement. It's not how long you've worked, how hard you've worked. It's what you've achieved while you were at work. It's about measurement. It's about knowing where we are and understanding and being able to measure it. The same is standing on that golf there, looking down there and measuring every little thing we do, analyzing everything that we're doing to find the best way we can do it. And of course, do it with passion, because there lies part of the key. is having the passion for what we do. People don't go around playing golf because they hate it. They go around because they have a passion for golf. It should be no different in your business. Where is your passion? Because let me tell you something. Whoever you are, if you're in a leadership position, how high the level of passion is in your business, your people will always operate below it. Nobody will be more passionate than you are, ever. How high do you set the bar for your people? And so, we have an age when we were looking for a balance of management and leadership. What we want here is those that remain functional, those that don't want to move into management. We need to respect that. We need to understand that. We need the leadership there, the management there. Management is about the systems and the processes and the structures, all of the policies that you have to have in place. We have to have those. We've seen in the banking industry when we start getting rid of policies and procedures. The key is who owns them. Are your policies and your procedures good for your business, and do they guide your business? And do your employees own them? Or are they seen as something that we creatively get round? Because we've seen the devastation that happens when we creatively get round policies and systems. So we need management. It's a vital part of our business. But we also need leadership. You and your business need the strategy. Where are we going? What are we trying to achieve? Great things have happened by people who've just thought different. People like Google, who just thought differently. And then went and bought YouTube for $1.8 billion when it was 15 months old and still hadn't turned a penny yet. But they saw something in there. Even great brand names like Coke, who've been around since eternity, have had to redefine themselves and relook at what actually their market is. We're not in the soda business, we're in the drinks business. They've had to enlarge their market. We have to, in business as leaders, look for alliances. You're here because you're part of MPI. That's a credit to you that you've got an alliance with MPI. How well are you using it? How are you contributing to it? If you come into the session, I'll share with you some of the examples that I've come across. But there's loads of them. BP and Marks & Spencer's in the United Kingdom coming together, giving them, the Marks & Spencer's, the retail shops to run. Let BP focus on the oil. There's Mini Cooper and Puma coming together to create a seat that breathes and a shoe to drive in. And Philips and Nivea coming together to get an electric wet shave. I call me old-fashioned, but I still have a problem with that one, okay? Electricity and water, you don't mix. But they say it works. And then there's Nickelodeon and Holiday Inn creating a nightmare. A hotel for kids. Hotel for children. That's what it is. And then the last one is your relationship with your people. People are not going to have passion unless you have that passion. And you've got to drive that passion with your people. You've got to be looking forward at how you can get that passion at the highest level. Do you know something which I really hate? I discovered it on my trip from London yesterday. I actually have a mental picture about each airline I use. I really do. When you name an airline, I have a picture. And the airline I used yesterday, and it's not professional of me to name them, but anyway, I wrote it. And you know what my mental picture was? They don't enjoy their job. And my wife dropped me at the airport, and she came in with me, and I went up, and I checked in, and as I was walking towards it, I said to my wife, oh, yes, it's this airline. Yeah, they don't like their jobs. And I walked up, and I checked in, and I tried as hard as I could to make the lady smile. And I walked away, and my wife said, you didn't have to do that. And I said, I know, but I feel so sorry for them, because they're just unhappy in their workplace. She said, yeah, I could see that bit. Is that the image you need? Ladies and gentlemen, it's funny, but it isn't funny. It's serious. And there's organizations, like I said, this session I'll do later on will be about exactly this. an organization that's the top in its country at the moment. It's one the highest profitable per square foot of any retail outlet in a shopping mall. It's one of the most innovative restaurant chain. Loads of awards and international awards as well. There are companies out there doing stuff and making good money as a result of it. So where are you? How are you spending your time? Are you just purely being a manager? Because that's what happens in a recession. People go back to being a manager when you need to be a leader. You need both. And that younger generation that want to remain functional, well, there's a whole story I could tell you about them as well. Are you up for the challenge? Are you too busy focused on the big picture not to take any time to look at the detail? Or are you too focused on the detail that you've forgotten the big picture and why you're trying to do things? I have 5 things that guide me personally. And I believe that they're what your business needs as a leader from you. Think global. Preserve the brand. Be a master of your craft. Take calculated risks, but also leave nothing to chance. And finally, work with the best. Find the best people to work with. Ladies and gentlemen, none of this is rocket science. Most of it you really do know if you are honest with yourself. The question really is, are you doing anything about it? You have a conference here with an outstanding program. There are people to talk to, there are people to meet. I know some of them. Go and talk to them. There's a book I read, Meeting Architecture, trying to rethink the whole business that we're in here. Worth reading. He's here. Go meet him. There's a guy who talks about helicopters and staying in the helicopter. There's a guy who understands this generation stuff in a way I never could. These people are here. They'll walk the corridors. They'll stop and talk to you. And then you have each other. Most of all, you have some great leaders here, that people that will share ideas with you. This is your time to discover the gear that you need to be in and be ready for when this recession is over. So have a great few days. I will be around. If you see me in the corridor and you want to talk to me, come up and talk to me. I don't bite. Chat to me. Tell me what's going on. Help me understand. I'm always interested in good ideas as well. So tell me what you're doing that's working, because that really gets me excited. We're doing a series of case studies at the moment. So if you know of any really outstanding organizations, I want to hear about them. I want to say thank you to the EIBTM who've been so great to sponsor this, and to particularly to Paul Kennedy, who takes the time to come here and welcome us and so forth. Have a great, great conference. Get your mind focused. Know what you want to get out of it, and hunt it down and look for it. And thank you for allowing me to be here at the start of it. Thank you. If you remember what I said, think global, preserve the brand, be master of your craft, take calculated risks but leave nothing to chance, and work with the best. Ladies and gentlemen, I study leadership, and this man doesn't know it, but I have studied him. He's a man who has a vision and has aspirations, and it works tirelessly on your behalf, and you don't even realize it probably half the time. And it's my great pleasure to say, if you want to see a man that personifies those attributes, then he will follow me on stage. I'd like you to please give a big round of applause to Bruce McMillan.
All right. Thank you, Paul, for connecting some absolutely brilliant ideas to our passion to be the absolute best that we can be. And oh, by the way, our chair, Larry Luderin, wants that study, so. You know, we are all in the human connections business, and keeping us connected to you is our production partner, Hail Oracle. And to keep us connected outside the room, we've brought in Content Management Corporation, who are going to help bring us to the world via the World Wide Web starting tomorrow afternoon. You know, Paul and Larry and Paul connected us to a lot of big ideas here this afternoon. And you've got much more to learn and connect to during the next few days of our conference. To help you do that as well, we've got a great Spot Me device. And on there, you can personally wish Eric Rosenberg happy birthday. And I encourage you more than ever to take advantage of all the knowledge and marketplace opportunities that are here. Yes, I said opportunities. Because even as we struggle to come to grips with the very real challenges we all face today, it really is, as Paul said, an unprecedented time for us to focus on our success and what success looks like to us. Now, I'm not going to kid you and say it's all going to be green grass and high tides tomorrow, because there's a lot going on in the world. And frankly, no one's really figured it all out yet, because very few of any of us have lived through this kind of economic upheaval before. But as you experience daily, we are in the middle of economic turmoil, and our industry really is under attack. Despite the fact that our own MPI Foundation, George P. Johnson Event View Study, the European version of which is going to be released here, confirms that chief marketing officers the world over see meetings and events, those very things that we create, provide the highest return on investment of any marketing platform. But misguided public perceptions and the threat of new government regulations are going to hurt our jobs, our businesses, and maybe the very communities that they support. And those organizations who use those powerful communication tools of meetings and events are now having to find less effective alternatives and face increasing adverse public perceptions about what it is they do. So guess what? They're going for alternatives in order to compete, bring value to their shareholders, and yes, repay the taxpayer dollars that you and I lent them to bail them out of their situation. Pretty scary stuff. And now they're having to do all this without the strategy that we all know provides the highest return on investment. And governments and the media, as you saw, are calling for heightened public scrutiny over what it is we do. Should we be worried about this? Yeah. But the good news is that we've been equipping our members with the knowledge and tools to make meetings and events deliver business returns like never before. Your clients and your businesses need you now more than ever, and we're going to give you the tools to help deliver those messages. This is one of the founding principles of our community. We are about business, and we are about business results. And that's why meetings and events, we're not the problem, but we are part of the solution. And we're collaborating with our peer organizations all around the world to get the story into boardrooms, committee rooms, and living rooms everywhere. Interesting times, huh? Say the least. I've been in this business now for over 20 years, and I can tell you that every time we've gone through a crisis or a big challenge, we have come back bigger and stronger than ever. And we did it because we practiced what we preached. We connected to ideas that made us better professionals. We connected to marketplaces that built our business. And we connected to relationships that protected and grew our industry. It's that energy and that passion that made us survive and thrive. But the rules of the game are changing. And that's what the European Meetings and Events Conference is all about. It's all about to help you understand what those new rules are, help you to understand what those opportunities are in this brave new world. But some things haven't changed. MPI and the MPI Foundation will always be committed to your success in good times and in some challenging ones like we're seeing right now. And our promise is that we will continue to provide you with relevant content, information, and marketplace opportunities in a connection and a community that you built. because there never has been a better time to buy MPI. You know, there's a piece of African folklore that tells a story about a herd of elephants that had to move to a new feeding ground in the midst of a famine on the savannah. And as they were traveling, a major storm erupted and created a flash flood, swelling the banks of a river and overflowing them, so they had to cross it. As elephants do, they moved strongest first, and the first elephants moved into the river and made it to the other side. But as they got on the shore to the better feeding ground, they looked behind them, and they saw that the rising waters were starting to cause some of the other elephants to drown. They didn't hesitate for a moment. They got back in the water and stood tail to trunk, blocking the rushing waters from upstream, just enough to lower the water levels so that all the community of elephants could cross the flooded river onto the other side to a better feeding ground. Igniting the power of community and connections is what we are all about. And you are here to connect to the passion that is our industry at a time when having the courage to act has never been so important, at a time when it feels safer, really, just to do nothing or stick to the status quo. That is the true sense of what leadership is, and that's what we are bringing together here. And just by deciding to come to this conference, you are going to make a difference in your career, in your industry, and in the communities in which you work. And that investment in you is going to pay off. And for that, we truly thank you for coming, and we thank all of our partners for supporting this event. And now, it's up to you to connect. Connect to the passion that is our industry, and also to connect to the passion of Torino. And helping us get and unleash that passion is your host committee, and I'd like to now ask them to stand, the Torino Host Committee. Introduce Marcella Gaspardoni,
Thank you
the
very
Director
much.
of the Torino Convention Bureau.
Thank you very much. But just few words, because I'm talking later during the opening ceremony. One thing, thanks to Paul, because I didn't know anything about your presentation, but I really appreciated a lot the part of Torino. I was impressed because it's true that this city, is really true that this city worked very hard in renovation, and we did and we do with passion. So this is why passion, we use passion, because this strong job since Olympics, before and now, we are doing with passion. I just want to say two things. Welcome to everybody here in Torino, and thank you, of course, to be here. I would like also to thank all the host committee, because I work with the best. We are more or less 30 persons. I don't know if they are already arrived. Some of them maybe are already in the Palavela. So thanks, we are all with the uniform so you can recognize us. And now I would like to invite to go to the Palavela for the opening ceremony. There are some buses outside. In 20 minutes, the last bus will go to Palavela. So if there is someone who won't go to hotel, I hope no, but if you have to go to your room to take something, but the first bus are here, and then it's not far, it's just few minutes, and enjoy your evening, and see you in Palavela in 20 minutes. Thank you.